Welcome to this episode of Chattin with Staxx. I'm your host, Bill Staxx, and today I got Mama Bear.
The day that I got fired, they interviewed Hunter, and it was on an interrogation CD in Discovery. I don't have that CD. I wish I did, so that I could play some recordings from it, but I've listened to the CD in my lawyer's office. And he's not telling him anything at first, and then they just badger him and badger him and badger him. And then that's when he said, "All right, I'll tell you. We've had sex every day that she worked since I've been transferred to that facility." And I'm here. He tells me this first because I tell him I'm going to get the interrogation CD in my Discovery pack. And he was like, "Well, you need to break it and don't listen to it."
Why? Why is he telling you that? Because he knows what he said on the tape.
Because he knows, because he got it in his Discovery pack. So he knows what's on it. And then he just comes clean and he tells me, and I'm sitting here on the other end of the phone like you're the one who told them we did this, so you're the one who brought up these charges against me. And I'm just sitting here like, okay. And then he's reading through the Discovery pack when he gets his, and he calls me, "Hey, I find out who told on us. It was my baby mama."
And what? How did she tell?
So back in February, they were texting and on a phone call, and he tells her that he's seeing someone in the facility and that he's going to be a daddy again. He didn't say stepdaddy, he said daddy. And so she knew that it was wrong because her mother had worked in a prison before. So she calls the facility, "Hi, I'm Hunter baby mama. I'm the mother of our child, and I believe he's involved with someone in your facility, and I believe they've gotten them pregnant." And so that's why they asked me if I was pregnant. So she thought I was a commissary worker because she didn't know much about me because he wouldn't tell her my name. She was begging to talk to me because obviously we're planning to be together and I'm planning to be around their child. And she's like, "I want to know who's going to be around my child." And he even asked me one day, he was like, "Would you talk to my baby mama?" And I told him, I said, "From everything I've known about her, from what you've told me, she seems like a bunch of drama, and I know she's going to come out and attack me, and I don't want to deal with that right now. I've got so much on my plate. I've got my dad dying, I've got this indictment, I've got this falling apart relationship with my fiance. Like, I cannot handle much more right now. So I would rather wait until you get out and we can all sit down together and talk." And I called his mom, and I'm like, "Hey, we found out who called the facility. It was her." And she's like, "Man," she's like, "you can't reach out to her. It'll jeopardize your case. That family is nothing but drama. They were together for a while, for 2 years before, and I've dealt with the family, and you just need to leave it alone." Because I'm pissed at this point. I'm ready to fight this girl. Like, I'm ready to meet with her and just knock her teeth down her throat. Because I'm just like, because if she hadn't have called, they wouldn't have started looking through the text messages and everything when they did. Yes, I probably would have been caught not that much longer after, but they
Probably.
didn't start looking into everything until after she called the facility.
What happens when you go to court the next time?
I go to the court and they keep pushing it off. I go to court in July. My lawyer calls me in August and she's like, "Hey, I got your first offer from the prosecutor's office." She was like, "Don't take it. It's not a very good offer." And I'm like, "Well, what's the offer?" And she said 13 years.
What? 13 years in prison?
Yes.
They advise you don't take it. It's a bad deal.
Yes. Because I tell her, I'm like, "I'll take the promoting contraband. I did that." I told her, I said, "I'll take that all day long because I did it." I said, "But I'm not taking this third-degree charge because I didn't do that. I'm not admitting to something I didn't do." And
Why
so I'm
would they
sitting here
charge you with that? Why would they give
because
you that kind of charge when it's a consensual thing?
because the statute for third degree R is a person in position of power with the person who cannot consent. So since he is a ward of the state, he cannot consent to anything. And so
Oh.
they're using that charge against me because, again, in the interrogation CD, he tells them, "Yes, we did this."
First offer's 13 years. What do they come back to you with?
They don't come back to another offer for me until the end of September because I go to court in August. And at this time, mine and Hunter's relationship was really rocky. Like we were fighting constantly. I don't have money to put on his books, so he's getting mad at me because I can't put money on his phone and everything. And that's when he comes up in August with the bright idea to convince me to sell myself.
What?
Yes, to get money.
He's trying to convince you to start doing some crazy stuff to get money.
Yes, he was like, if you do this, I know you're a good looking person. I know people's going to pay high prices and we're going to be rolling in it. And at first, I thought about it. This man has me so mentally messed up that I thought about it.
That's
But I
crazy.
just tell him, I'm not doing this. Like, you can just drop it, leave it alone. And then I didn't text him for a couple of days because I refused to talk to him. He's trying to call me, he's trying to text me, and I'm hitting the button, declining it every single time. And so at this point, my mind is made up. Like, yes, he's saying that he's trying to help me, but he's trying to get me to do all this crap that I'm going to find a way to get out of this third-degree charge myself. I'm not going to use his help. I'm going to find a way myself. So I go to court in August and I tell my attorney, I'm like, you need to go to this facility, and this facility. You need to subpoena records. You need to go through to see when he's not mad at me and he tells me nothing happened, to the point when we start fighting and him saying, oh, you know what you did. You know what happened when you went into the closet with me that night. And he's so bipolar and getting so mad at me that he's constantly flip-flopping. So I'm sitting here, I'm like, I'm going to discredit this man, because he's still telling the prosecutors that we did this. And he took his plea deal at the end of August, and he got 3.5 more years.
So he's going behind your back, telling them that what? So that's why they're offering you so much time.
Yeah, so they offer him to drop the PFO charge if he takes the promoting contraband. And he said, well, I'm only going to take 3.5 more years. So the prosecutor looks at it, they have a meeting in the courthouse, and they agree to the plea deal. He goes to court, boom, he's got 3.5 more years. So he's got a total of 10 years, because he was in there for 6.5 originally for stealing a Jeep, taking police on a police chase through 3 different counties and into another state, and hitting a state trooper car so hard it knocks it off an embankment and rolls. So I go to court, I tell my attorney this is the court date in August, and then she shows me an email from the prosecutor where he says that the day that he took his plea deal, he's still saying that we had sex every time I worked. And that's when I brought up getting the subpoenas for all this information and for her to highlight and go through. And I said, no, you're going to see some sexual text messages. I'm not going to lie to you. And so I'm preparing you for that. Because they told me, they said, there's no way that we can stop you from talking to him because there's not a no contact order in place. Yeah. Like, if you want to talk to him, be in a relationship with him, we can't stop you. Just be smart about it. And so I'm like, okay, so I sit there and I tell her this, and I'm like, as soon as you get it, you need to send it to the prosecutor and show them how much he flip-flops and discredit this dude. And so she comes back and it's about a month. So September, she comes back with me and she's like, we got another offer. They want to amend the 3rd degree R to misconduct, which is a misdemeanor. And they want to give you 5 years probation. I told her, I said, set up for the court date for October and I'll come in and I'll take that plea deal. As soon as I find out I'm not going to prison or anything, I'm taking that plea deal.
So that's what you did.
That's what I did. At the end of October, I went in, I signed all the papers for the guilty plea. We go up, I get called. The judge starts asking me the standard questions. Are you on any alcohol, drugs, narcotics? Did someone tell you we would go easy on you? You know, the spiel when you take a guilty plea. They're asking all those questions to make sure you're in sound mind and body. And it gets to the question of, do you have any mental health issues? And I look at the judge, I'm like, yep. And he's sitting there looking at me like, what are your issues? What's going on here, ma'am? And I'm like, I have borderline personality disorder. I've been diagnosed PTSD. I've been diagnosed major depression and severe anxiety along with OCD. And the judge at the bench hears me say this and looks at me and goes, I'm like, in my head thinking, yeah, bro, I know. It's a lot. It's a lot.
And they hired you in a facility to look
And
over inmates.
I disclosed my mental illness to them too. When I got interviewed, I told them straight up, hey, I have borderline personality disorder and PTSD, because they asked me, well, what do you think you'll be able to handle this stuff? And I'm like, I've already got PTSD. I'm already mentally messed up in the head. What worse can happen?
I'm
So
already
I
looking
told
over a
them,
bunch of other people, right?
yeah, like I have 4 children. And they're like, okay, well, and they still hired me.
So what does the judge say?
The judge looks at me and goes, well, I'm going to make it a condition of your probation that you get mental health counseling. And I'm like, that's fine, because I need mental health counseling at this point. I've needed it for a while, but I have been on so many antidepressants and the wrong antidepressant medicine, because for the longest time they thought I was bipolar. They didn't diagnose me with BPD until 2017 after a sexual assault. And so I have been on medication off and on since I was 8 years old. So I'm tired of being on medicine at this point. I don't want to do it. I've tried to do therapy like 5 different times. Every time I get in good with the therapy and the therapist, they either leave the practice or I just stop going because I feel better. And I stop taking my medication because I feel better.
And then it starts all over again. It's like a cycle, right?
Yes, starts all over again.
Now, after you go to that court date, you're a convicted felon.
I am a convicted felon because the promoting contraband one is a Class D felony. The other 2 were just misdemeanors.
What ends up happening with you and your fiance?
So in May, after my father passed away, we split up. We were split up for about 6 months. I was jumping from couch to couch because I didn't have a home, because I got evicted in July of my apartment. And he was trying to convince me to get an apartment with him, and that we were going to try to keep the nuclear family unit together. And I'm sitting here like, no, because I'm seeing someone at this point and it's going really well. Until October, when the beginning of October, before I even take my plea deal, the guy I was seeing throws me out because he wants his ex-wife to come back home because they was in the middle of a divorce. So I'm officially homeless with my 2 children at this point. I call my fiance and I'm like, hey, I need help. I'm going to be homeless. Me and the boys are going to be homeless. We don't know what to do. And at this point, he's living in a van in the woods. He doesn't even have a house.
Wow.
And he's looking at me like, how am I supposed to help you when I can't even help myself? He says, hold on a second. Let me call my pastor of my church. He's going to call you and we'll talk about it. The pastor of his church calls me, asks me about the situation. I tell him what's going on. He goes, okay, I'm going to get a hotel room for a week for you and the boys. And if your fiance wants to come stay with you, he can. So I call him back and I'm like, hey, I'm checking into this hotel at 3:00. This is where it's at. Can you meet me there? And he's like, absolutely, I'll meet you there. He said, we'll figure this out. And he was like, thank you for calling me and letting me help you, because he just wanted, when he wasn't mad at me and we weren't fighting, all he wanted to do was help. He was like, I want to help you with your case. I don't want you taken away from the kids. And so he was like, I'll help you, we'll get your case over with. We'll figure out a way to get you into a homeless shelter. So we stayed in the hotel for about 5 weeks. And at the end of October, October 28th, is when I took my plea deal. And so he was with the boys. I went to court, took my plea deal, came back, said, well, I'm a convicted felon now.